It's the Weekly Wrap with your host, broadcasting legend Bruce Wolf, and his trusty sidekick, comedian Tim Slagle. And now, without further ado, Bruce Wolf.
Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap. Tim, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Did you have a good vacation?
Yeah, it's okay. I went on a golf trip, hurt my toe, but that's my problem.
Man.
I'm one of the walking wounded. Do I qualify for benefits? I don't know. So you are where are you located right now? I know that you probably have a cache of weapons as well as canned goods for the next 400 years. Where are you?
I have the canned goods. I don't have the weapons, so I don't know if that's going to do any good in the apocalypse. Because if you got weapons, you don't need canned goods.
That's true. That's true. So anyway, we haven't talked a little bit about anything current, but the Highland Park, of course, was horrible. I don't even want to tell you all the relatives I had that were there and are nervous, and I mean it's terrible, and I have to resist so much wanting to repeal the Second Amendment because of just the emotion involved. That's just what happens. I have found that I'm somewhat human, but one of the things that I'm interested in is the dad of the shooter. Now, I haven't read anything lately, so I may not be up to date on it, which isn't the best idea for a podcast. But he seemed like he was oblivious to what was going on with his kid and even authorized him to get a weapon. Now, I know the last thing I read was that the parents were cooperating with the authorities, but did you hear anything different from what I'm representing right now?
No, and if your kid has orange, green, and blue hair and asks for a gun, tell him to get a haircut first. Yeah, first.
I mean, if you cover almost a third of the Roy G. Biv spectrum on colors of your hair, so the problem is when you. So Uvalde taught us that you can't trust the police, right? And Highland Park is telling us that you can't trust the parents. So this is a pretty good argument for repealing the Second Amendment because what else is there left to do about this thing? Although if you repeal the Second Amendment, you'd be putting your trust in the people, the least trustworthy of all.
What happened with the former
what
happened with the former prime minister in Japan kind of shows you that I mean, they don't have a Second Amendment. You can't own guns in Japan.
Right.
So the guy would make one. Granted, he was Japanese, and it's much easier for those people to make weapons
what
out
did
of
Rahm Emanuel do
MacGyver
about
weapons.
Rahm Emanuel, who's now our ambassador to Japan. And why was it again, Tim, that he became...
he became ambassador to Japan because he wanted to feel tall.
Exactly.
For the first time in his life.
The first setup of the day, now I can step on you over at least 3 lines. That's the ratio. So, but did anybody even ask Rahm for a comment about that? He was, hey, look, I'm here. I used to be the mayor of Chicago, and I'm the ambassador of Japan. How about a comment?
He's not one to
Rahm.
He's not one to point fingers. So.
Hey, okay. So let's. All right. So
what we learned from Uvalde? You know what we learned is that one untrained kid with an AR-15 can hold off 376 police officers.
Yeah, right. I mean,
that's why we have a Second Amendment.
But the thing is that I mean, what probably happened? I mean, maybe some of the kids or teachers would have survived. We really will never know. But the constant in this is the AR-15.
No, I disagree. The constant is the media coverage. Do you realize that Uvalde was almost 2 months ago? 2 months, and it still leads the news every single night.
Well, because there's more and more that comes out about although I mean, there's a lot of diminishing returns.
Well, what came out in the
the police had blown it like within days after.
What came out in the report was that the kid was obsessed with being famous.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question about it.
Mission accomplished.
Right, and quite frankly, I don't even remember now the name of the Highland Park shooter, and I hope the media have tried to submerge that. But the problem is media coverage is a constant. The fact that our mental health system overreacted to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is a problem. But a constant here is that darn AR-15, and it's sure, like in the Indiana case, where fortunately there was somebody who was carrying a gun and was pretty much an amateur and shot this guy at like 90 feet, which is pretty good with a handgun to be able to do that. I've done
8 out of
practice.
10. He got 8 out of 10 in them.
I mean, it's just amazing, and they were fortunate in that regard. But 3 people still died, and the AR-15 is a constant. And the last person to want to agree with Governor Pritzker on anything or any of these other people, but it's like.
The only reason why
there was an experiment in getting rid of the AR-15 at the turn of this century, and apparently it didn't work. But it seems like the circumstances have changed. I mean, what's the argument against getting rid of the AR-15 now?
Because it's a nice rifle, and it is. It doesn't have a hard recoil. It's quite accurate. It's if you like target shooting, the AR-15 is a joy to shoot.
Yeah, and ostensibly it's really good for protection too, because you see how it can be used as an offensive weapon. I don't know how many people actually ever have to use it as a defensive weapon, but then again, it might be a deterrent to the bad guys. And I don't know how you measure
there were
that.
some. I believe that's what the rooftop Koreans preferred during the riots last century in LA was the AR-15.
No,
And
right.
I'll tell you the reason why these are all AR-15s, for the same reason that a skateboard ban makes every teenage kid want to skateboard. It's basically they want this because it is the weapon of horror. It is just the very name of the weapon scares a lot of people. But that's why these kids want it, because they're not supposed to have.
I get it that they want it, but they're not. They're not these. They fit a certain profile, and I think the profile is that they're willing to get it legally. Okay. So if you made it illegal, they wouldn't get it. Now, does that mean you still wouldn't have mass shootings and mall shootings? Yeah, you might not, but I don't know if you'd have a guy on a rooftop in downtown Highland Park without the AR-15. And yeah, the problem is that, and I said this when Uvalde happened, everybody was fortunate that school was letting out because we wouldn't have the opportunity for something like this immediately after Uvalde. But in fact, we did have it on July 4th. And I'm thinking, if we keep having these and the frequency it picks up, and you're getting one a month or whatever, I see public opinion probably is already in favor of getting rid of the AR-15, but I see public opinion really shifting hard on that. And that Mitch McConnell, in his infinite wisdom, and I am nothing if not a Mitch McConnell Republican, there's no question about it, said, let's make some deal here so that we at least look like we're doing something. And they did do something there, but I'm not sure it'll be enough. But in the meantime, we should point out that there are no arrests in Chicago anymore for any kind of crimes. So that was the latest statistic on that.
Well, at least we have one industry left here after Boeing and the rest
we do
of all
have the
left.
criminal industry.
Yeah,
and there's drag racing now. Did you see where they're making donuts and everything? And fiery donuts.
Well, that's actually to me that is actually hilarious. The day after they ban drag racing and side drifting, they invite NASCAR to Chicago.
Well, sure. And as my former partner Dan Proft, I saw tweeted, he said he wondered if it could be the first NASCAR event where there's a carjacking. So that would be kind of neat. But there have been no police. The police have made arrests in just 12% of crimes reported last year, according to a Sun-Times analysis. That's the lowest level since at least 2001, the first year the data was made publicly available. So I mean, it seems like the blue flu has turned into long COVID right now, because it's just it's the Ferguson effect. Nobody wants to get in trouble. The police don't want to get into trouble.
Boy, that's actually going to be interesting when the NASCAR is. Gentlemen, start your. Oh, wait a minute! All the catalytic converters are gone.
The distributor caps are missing from the NASCAR. And since when are we good old boys up here with a NASCAR race? In Chicago, one of the most cosmopolitan.
Well, you don't have to go too far south of I-80 to find some hardcore NASCAR fans.
But where is the NASCAR race going to be run? I would like it to be run you know, on the perimeter of Soldier, you know, the old Soldier Field used to have a track. So this is why you couldn't see a football game from any seat in the place, because it had the track on the perimeter, and the seats were so far away. Like, you know, where are they going to run?
I think it's going to start at Buckingham Fountain. Mm-hmm. It's going to go up Lakeshore Drive. Then it's going to hang a left. Then it's going to come back around, going to hang back around the Bean.
See, we need the S curve. You don't remember the S curve. I mean, so you.
I remember hearing about the S curve.
Yeah, NASCARs would be stock cars would be flying off into Lake Michigan trying to make that turn. I once got stalled on the S curve. There was more. Oh yeah, they got to rebuild the S curve in order to make that a great race. So looking forward to that. Hey, coming back on the other side, we'll talk a little bit about Biden's poll numbers. They're way down, and the Democrats are even abandoning Joe Biden. And what was the meaning of that phantom fist bump that he had? I
know what that is. That's a traditional greeting in Saudi Arabia among shoplifters.
You mean they don't cut off your hand? It's the handless fist bump. If you shoplift,
the stump bump.
You can't really do that. Plus, Jill Biden, she's not. I think she's doing cover for Joe, because she uttered this thing that it was a while ago already, but she said that the Hispanics are as unique as breakfast tacos, and I beg to differ. I beg, but we'll talk about all that coming up on the weekly wrap with Bruce Wolf and Tim Slagle.
As distinct as the Bogotas of the Bronx, as beautiful as the blossoms of Miami, and as unique as the breakfast tacos here in San Antonio.
Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the weekly wrap, and Tim, you know that tacos comment has legs. Joe Biden is not going to be remembered for being a doctor of education,
or geography. She doesn't know the difference between a bodega and a Bogota.
Oh yeah, Bogota and a bodega. Bogota. We all learned a little bit of. You know, it's funny how they used to make fun of Dan Quayle because he misspelled potato, and you know what the media would have done had Jill Biden been a Republican, or
sure.
You know, at least Melania had the good sense to plagiarize Michelle Obama. So I mean, that was good. But Jill Biden can't even get a copy editor to tell you that's not how you say bodega. That's it. And what's this whole tacos thing? You know, the
breakfast tacos. I didn't know there were breakfast tacos. I always thought
there
they were.
I've had them in Dallas.
Are they?
I had breakfast tacos, and you know, I got to tell you, there's no.
Are they hard shell? Are they hard shell?
You know, I can't remember. They might come in all three. There might be a venti, a grande. Oh no, that's something else. But what is the problem? I want to defend Jill Biden because tacos to me are like snowflakes. Each one is different. So it wasn't stereotyping the Hispanics. And get this, an increasing number of these tacos are, wait for this, Republican. Is that too much hot sauce for you, Jill? That's the joke of it, is that Hispanics are turning Republican.
Uh-huh.
I mean, there's this district in Texas near the Gulf, I guess it is, that's traditionally Democratic, that has gone Republican. I mean, it's all part of the Republican wave, but the Democrats cannot count on the minorities anymore. The Democratic Party is becoming an increasingly white elitist party. It's the old Republican Country Club party.
Yeah, I think it was Johnny Rotten that said that. He said that who would have ever thought that the Republicans would be the party of the revolution, and the Democrats would be the old white fuddy-duddies.
No, there's been a sea change that way, and Biden
with the Hispanics, you know, of course, they're going to turn out to be Republican. They know what they left. You know?
Exactly. They left those S-hole countries, as Donald Trump said. Yeah, I never saw I had a problem with a number of things Trump said, but I never had a problem with that comment per se, because That's why people leave those countries. You know how hard it is to leave a country? Do you think people really do you think Elian Gonzalez wanted to ride a dolphin in from Cuba to the United States? But so meanwhile, husband Joe's
anything that floats.
Yeah, his numbers are tanking. But I think, at the rate that prices are falling right now for gas, those mom and pop gas stations are going to pay you to pump gas at their stations just as a lost leader to get you to buy the sushi. I mean, that's how good it is getting. Gas was. Have
you ever thought that you would celebrate at seeing gas under $4.50 a gallon? Did you ever think, oh my gosh, look, it's 407. Oh, I gotta fill up on that.
It's horrible. So Biden pleading with the Saudis for gas. He didn't get a guarantee about that. And then he winds up doing this fist bump. And I'm trying to look at it in a benign manner. Maybe when he fist bumped that dude, Mohammed bin Salman, maybe he didn't actually see him and he thought he was fist bumping an empty chair. You know how he goes to shake hands with empty chairs all the time? I'm trying to look at it in a light most favorable to the
That's the first time I've noticed
States.
the guy saluting Biden in the background.
Oh, there you go.
That is is that a U.S. soldier saluting him, or is he saluting the prince? I'm not sure.
Here's the thing. At some point, it may come down to this in 2024. It may be the image of Biden trying to shake hands with an empty chair versus the image of Donald Trump trying to overthrow the government of the United States on January 6th. Now, I go with Trump for this reason. Because in his infinite wisdom, Donald Trump named Mike Pence as his vice president. And he knew, or if he didn't know consciously, he understood. He was like, you remember when the Three Stooges, when one of them was going to get into a fight but didn't really want to, he said, hold me back. And he would pretend like the other two Stooges were holding him back. You know that Trump really didn't want to have this happen. And fortunately, his ace in the hole was Mike Pence, whom he could blame for the whole thing. And it was Trump. Trump didn't name a guy like himself as vice president. He named a level-headed guy like Mike Pence, the vice president. So that's why I see total exoneration after through this January 6th thing, because, it's like a husband and wife. They're a team, and Pence was part of that team. He wasn't elected separately from Donald Trump. So thank goodness for Mike Pence. He saved the day, but Trump gets the credit for Pence saving the Republic on January 6th. So that's why I still, if necessary, would vote. I can't believe I'm saying this. I would vote for Donald Trump if he's the candidate. I mean, what am I going to do?
Sure, if it's a rematch, everybody would. I mean, they're not gonna.
I just don't know that he's going to necessarily make it. Now, some of the people that Trump are supporting, like he supported the guy in Maryland in the governor's race, and Larry Hogan's traditional Republican lost, but this guy has no chance. On the other hand, Mastriano, the guy in Pennsylvania, may actually win, and he's a Trumper, but I don't see Bailey.
Well, that's what everyone's saying. All the establishment Republicans are saying none of these guys have a chance. Well, that's what they said about Trump as well.
I know, but just because, but these guys really don't seem to have a chance. I mean, what's the latest? Have you seen the latest polling on Bailey? I haven't heard a word from him since he apologized for saying, let's move on and celebrate July 4th, like 5 minutes after the shootings in Highland Park. But then he did apologize for that. But have you seen any polling on this? I mean, it would be good for doing.
Was Bailey the Trump candidate? Was
Bailey is the Trump? You and I both voted for Irvin, and he got trounced by Bailey. I think Pritzker, running unopposed, correct me if I'm wrong, got more votes than both of the Republicans combined, even though they had a contested election. I mean, it looks like it's going to be an absolute wipeout. And I get the thinking, I guess, this is, being very charitable on my part, that, in a wave year, maybe you could get away with a guy like Bailey in Illinois, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen. And it looks like another walk off the plank by the Republican Party.
Pritzker supported Bailey too, though, didn't he? Didn't Pritzker
Yes, Pritzker
campaign?
to the tune of $45 million.
Yeah.
I think the Democrats, and this Uline guy, whom I'd like to get a buck or two from, but he gave like $9 million to Bailey, and I wonder what's that all about. It may be an abortion, but I don't understand it because he can't win. And there's absolutely no way, unless you, you're an adherent to WIND's Morning Answer. You don't believe.
Maybe that's my problem. I think
you don't believe that he can.
I listened to Dan and Amy, and I think he has a chance.
Yeah, I just quoted Dan earlier favorably, and I love Amy, but I just don't. I don't see it, but I could be wrong. So it doesn't seem like he has a chance here. Now, there are other candidates like Herschel Walker, and I really like that soundbite that he had about global warming. It reminded me so much of Spicoli explaining the American Revolution to Mr. Hand. Actually, Spicoli made sense. That's not being nice to Spicoli, but he said something to the effect of that. See, we got our clean air, but then China's got the dirty air, and then the dirty air takes over our clean air. And in some way, it actually seemed to make sense. Just like Jimmy the Greek, remember when he said that black athletes, I think that was Al Campana, said they couldn't float, but Jimmy the Greek said something just as bad when he was drunk. And then Sports Illustrated came out with an issue about fast twitch fibers in black athletes' muscles, and used all the fancy language that Jimmy the Greek didn't have access to.
That's the difference.
Exactly the same thing that Jimmy the Greek said, but they got away with it. And I'm saying Herschel Walker could probably get away with what he was saying because it made a certain sense if he just didn't sound so dumb saying it.
Well, isn't that the problem? Is that if we went zero carbon, none of the rest of the world is going to fall in with that.
No, Germany's we're going to have no air conditioning, and the rest of the world's going to be just fine. No,
Germany's
I totally
going back to coal. That's
Well, it's funny in England. Is it England with it? Oh no, it's not England. It's where is it? They've gone back to coal. Oh, Germany. Germany's going back to coal. Not helmet coal either, but but they're going back to coal, even though they had the nuclear energy option. Because it gives them such the heebie-jeebies, and they're going and now they're being now the Russians have them held hostage.
Nuclear Germany gives me the heebie-jeebies too.
Well, yeah, me too. Me too. I remember when George Will was writing when Germany was reunified. He said, "You can't do it. You can't let them reunify it because we're going to get the." And I understood it because here we go again, but. Yeah. It turns out they're kind of wussy about everything. All right, coming up in our next segment, Mike Royko's kid is running for alderman. How about that?
No kidding.
And Prince Harry, boy, you really want him speaking before the United Nations. Yeah, that's as good a reason as any to dissolve the UN. And the Pope coming to Canada to make an apology. And I've been waiting for it for years, but he's going north of us. All coming up on the weekly wrap.
The politicians Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ilhan Omar, two terrible lefties as far as I'm concerned. Here they are protesting against the US Constitution and pretending to be handcuffed for the cameras while being escorted away from the scene. The invisible handcuffs, hey, that only allow you to raise a fist in solidarity.
Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the weekly wrap, and that was wonderful theater, wasn't it, Tim? I mean, They had me going for a while until I guess one of them, Omar, raised her hand. Oops, I forgot I was cuffed. I don't know if they were just trying to pull the ruse off that they were cuffed or just going through the pantomiming. Christine Rosen on the Commentary podcast said that it looked like they were doing a Civil War reenactment. I mean, it was that authentic. But
I think they were just going for the still shot. Right. If you remember that wonderful picture of her half bent over in mourning for on the one side of the chain link fence, looking at an empty parking lot. but the picture was
protesting
just
at the Supreme Court, which isn't even in session right now. But and it's just interesting that they would go through this whole charade. It's been a great fundraiser, or at least that's what they're doing it because they're trying to fundraise off of this. But I mean, for a hot minute, I thought that Penn was going to be replacing Teller with Ilhan Omar because she just looked. How did she slip those cuffs? And she, naive me, she didn't actually have them on.
I don't know. Maybe she's had some experience with wearing handcuffs. Maybe her and her brother likes playing cop and robber or pirate in federal
authority. It's not forbidden
enough
that it's with the brother allegedly, but that they're doing that. Oh boy, that's so. Meantime, Mike Royko. Were you a Mike Royko fan at all?
Oh, who was not?
Okay,
who could claim living in Chicago and not enjoy Mike Royko?
So his son Sam Royko, an attorney, has announced he's going to run for First Ward alderman next year, and his quote is, "Today, we take the next steps for a safer First Ward that offers improved communications, better constituent services, and gets back to the basics with community-based leadership." And I'm thinking, if Mike Royko had written stuff like that, he wouldn't have lasted for a minute at the Daily News. I mean, send him back to the City News Bureau to tighten up that writing.
Oh my gosh! Sometimes the apple rolls quite a distance from the tree.
I mean, well, that's the metamorphosis of the Royko clan, what it's come to, because Royko was actually criticized. Roger Ebert gave the most left-handed obituary for Mike Royko, who was a colleague of his and a fan. When Royko died, Ebert said basically Royko had lost his way because Royko was always for the underdog, and the underdog changed from the downtrodden blue-collar worker to the employer who had to face all the red tape from the EEOC. And Royko even had some Mexican Americans standing outside his Tribune office and protesting. And if you read, and this isn't even when he went to the Tribune and supposedly went bad. He was still at the Sun-Times. It just shows how much we've changed. He has a column somebody sent to me. It's hysterical. It's about him trying to get a cab ride, and the cab driver is Iranian and doesn't know his way around the city. And Royko is livid and yelling at this cab driver and saying everything short of calling him a towel head. I mean, and and he could never get away with anything nearly that bad. So maybe that's what we've become, how sanitized we've become in the person.
Well, Royko's replacement was a little bit too much for the today's Chicago Tribune. When Royko left, they brought in John Cass. He became the
I thought column. Cass. I mean, I know John, and I think he's a very good writer. It's just the times changed. Nobody could ever be that big. As a matter of fact, I think Royko was dwarfed by the grayness of the huge broadsheet of the Tribune. Whereas when he was in the Daily News was a broadsheet too, but the Sun-Times was he just overwhelmed page 2 of the Sun-Times. It's a feng shui kind of thing. But anyway, I have a relative who actually had a mosaic picture, a gigantic mosaic picture of Royko on his living room wall. I mean, that's
peculiar.
A little bit peculiar, but somewhat understandable because that's what kind of an icon.
What kind of mosaic was it? Was it a tile mosaic, or
it was a tile mosaic?
So it was one of those ones that like kids made with macaroni and beans.
You know, upon closer inspection, maybe it was edible. I don't really remember.
Because that would be more appropriate, I think.
Right. So Prince Harry actually did speak before the United Nations, and he said that Roe versus Wade is setting back civilization. And I was thinking there would have been a little bit greater authenticity to that had he done it in a powdered wig and argued it. Like, wait a minute. We separated ourselves from you, buddy. We got a constitution. We don't. You please discuss to me the penumbras and emanations that Justice Blackmun found in Roe, Harry.
Yeah,
really. I mean,
well, yeah, you think Harry would be more upset over that Second Amendment decision that the Supreme Court
I would
laid.
think so.
Because I mean, that's kind of the reason why we don't speak with those silly accents anymore.
Right. Thank God for muskets back in those days. But he's talking about democracy. So how is it a blow against democracy when the Supreme Court has returned power to the states vis-a-vis the Leviathan of the federal government? Please explain, Prince Harry. No, I don't really quite understand that.
It's kind of funny, monarch talking about democracy as well. Where were you elected, Harry? I don't remember that election.
Right. And the British invasion is bad enough, but we also got the Pope coming into North America, traveling to Canada to apologize for the church's treatment of indigenous groups, and they really want to make it up to the Indians. How's about turning the ceiling in St. Peter's Basilica into a giant roulette wheel and cede the Vatican to the Hakawi tribe? How about that, Pope? Put your money where your mouth is.
Heck, that would be ceding it to the Knights of Columbus.
Exactly. Right. Absolutely. Touche there. So did you see that Aldi's is abandoning Chicago, and Lori Lightfoot, as Eric Zorn so properly opined in a tweet, is browbeating them? Like that's going to keep them, Whole Foods left, Aldi's is closing. I know this guy, Danny Parkins on The Score, actually had a telethon or marathon on the radio to build some kind of food court, banana stand or something like that in Englewood. The problem is, according to a University of Chicago Booth Economics School study, poor people don't like to eat healthy. So, and you can't blame them. I mean, because you're going to spend the dollars that you have, the discretionary income that you have, on stuff that's going to make you feel good when you're poor. And it's only rich
happy
people.
Food, food. But
yeah,
happy
right.
food, potato chips and ice cream.
Yeah, it's only rich people that can afford to have that ascetic life where
torture themselves with kale.
Yeah, and look like social X-rays, according to Tom Wolfe in The Bonfire of the Vanities.
Of course, then they always go home when they when no one's looking, and that's when they pull out the ice cream and potato chip. The kale, that's just a pound.
They never lose a pound.
The kale, that's just for show. They just put that in the shopping cart to impress the other shoppers.
So Leah Thomas, you remember her name? She's been nominated for NCAA Woman of the Year. Now you remember she's the man who's trying to be a woman. Uh-huh. And somebody said, I've said this before and I'll say it again, I have zero problem with Leah embracing her true and authentic self. What I have a problem with is that to protect the rights of one, we're throwing every other woman out the window. And you know what? Really, it's not every other woman. It's a group of elite athletes who are paying the price. That's all. I mean, none of the rest of us is affected. And sometimes you just have to break a few egg producers to make an omelet, as George Orwell should have said. Then it's staying on the trans beat here.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is Leah Thomas fully
no
trans? No.
I don't think so.
She's still got equipment,
and I think that's actually slowed her down. So kudos to her for winning.
But I mean, my opinion is you don't get up on that starting block until you're willing to face the chopping block. Okay, I think we need to show commitment.
There we go.
If you're committed to, you know what I mean, because you can always say, well, I got all my awards now, I decided I'm a man again. Well, no.
I'm with you on that one. My friend.
Show that you're committed to being a woman athlete.
So there was also this testimony, and I forgot this was testifying before the Senate, where she was referring to a person with a capacity for pregnancy.
Oh, I saw that.
Would not say the word woman, and I was thinking, I like the lilt of person with a capacity for pregnancy. What if Helen Reddy had said, I am a person with a capacity for pregnancy. Hear me roar. That would have been a much better song.
It also would have been incorrect because there are cis women who are not capable of pregnancy, according to the Berkeley attorney who was being interrogated.
The asterisk on that. How about Gary Puckett with person with capacity for pregnancy? Whoa, person with a capacity for pregnancy. Have you got cheating on your mind? How about Camelot? How to handle a person with a capacity for pregnancy? Oh, there's so many possibilities there. Time magazine has a cover of a man breastfeeding a baby, and it's a hairy man too.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
they had to lay it on. I mean,
please, Chris, do not show that picture. That is so disturbing.
Yeah, Michael Brendan Doherty of National Review calls it transanity. So I like that neologism. And it reminds me a little bit of Linsanity, which didn't last that long in New York, I don't believe. So, and there's a transgender.
What actually happened there? Did he actually take hormones so he could produce milk, or does he just enjoy having a baby suck on his nipple?
I didn't really want to read the article. I got turned off by the hair. I'm sorry. I'm a bigot.
Because that might just be a perversion.
It was just a form of music that we thought was stupid. We mocked it, we made fun of it, and we blew it up.
Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the weekly wrap. Yeah, Tim, I know that Disco Demolition was, seems like eons ago, but the anniversary of it, but it's always near and dear to my heart, even though I wasn't there that day. But I wound up working with Steve Dahl and Gary Meyer and got to reminisce about it on the 10th anniversary of Disco Demolition. And I also, the 40th, a couple of years ago, or 3 years ago, was it, I guess? Yeah, was kind of special because the controversy over that night being allegedly anti-gay was resurrected. Now, I didn't know that, but apparently there was. Because they wanted to get, yeah.
Disco Demolition was an anti-gay protest?
Yeah, supposedly. I mean, this is how it was. The revisionist history was that, because gay people liked disco music. Therefore, you don't. I mean, I wanted to have a parallel Andy Williams record Demolition Night, and we'd get rid of Andy Williams records, Nancy Wilson, Tony Bennett, maybe even Ferranti and Teicher dueling pianos, and have people in their 50s and 60s protest that it was.
I was living outside Detroit at the time, so
you were just happy the Tigers won a doubleheader. Second game 1-0.
Yeah, well, I was. There was a huge anti-disco movement in Chicago, in Detroit at the same time. It was Detroit rockers engaged against disco. It was the Dread Gang, and they had Dread cars at the local WRAF. That was our rock and roll station, and that was they would hand out those. So it was the same kind of thing. It was
just thinking about that. I mean, it's so funny to me because just a few years earlier, I was worried about whether I was going to get drafted to fight in Vietnam, and then the big fight turned out to be with Steve Dahl in a pith helmet.
Well, it was kind of the whole thing. The disco, anti-disco. To me, it was the American version of the Mods versus the Rockers.
Oh, okay.
And my guess is most of the disco fans were on the north, were Northsiders, were Cubs fans. whereas
Of course.
Southsiders,
Are you kidding me? Yeah.
And it's
I mean, half the Cub players were like, they didn't even play the national anthem before games at Wrigley Field. They played MacArthur's Park down in summer. And about 6 minutes into it, everybody's like falling asleep. Play ball already. The song's 8 minutes. But anyway, the 40th anniversary.
Holy cow! There's a cake out in the rain.
You know what? Not only do you sound like him, you look a little like him, Tim, as well. And
Scary,
you know how partial I am to Will Ferrell's imitation of Harry Carey. I'm the only one who likes Will Ferrell's because he looks like Albert Einstein with his, finger having going into a socket, and he sounds crazed. It's not. It's not. Anyway, Steve Dahl threw out the first pitch, I believe, on the 40th anniversary at the ballpark, but TV did not show it. And even though they showed a group of, I think it was like Polish dancers also throwing out a first pitch that night, but they didn't show it, I believe, for fear of alienating the people who thought that it was homophobic. And Rick Hahn, the general manager, was quoted in a Rob Feeder post at that time, this is 3 years ago, about not wanting to alienate the fans, though he wasn't specific about whom he was afraid of alienating. That's how fearful he was of alienating anybody. And to add to all that ambiguity, Rob Feeder himself, in quoting Rick Hahn, I know this is sounding meta right now, and there's many, many layers to this, he didn't even mention what he was quoting Rick Hahn about. So you didn't even know that it was like, we don't want to hurt gay people's feelings. It was just, we don't want to hurt the feelings of people whose feelings might be hurt. It's
have you ever been on the South Side?
Tell me about it. Tell me about it.
Oh
yeah.
My God.
Sometimes I was so fearful I'd just stay in McCuddy's the entire time and not come out for the ball game.
Anyone north of Roosevelt Avenue is a homo.
Roosevelt Road, my friend. My friend. I was born on Roosevelt Road.
From Detroit. Sorry.
Oh my goodness. So, speaking of Robert Feeder, he's formerly a good friend of mine. He did not retire. He said he's not retiring, but he quit doing his column after 42 years. And, it's a sad day because...
What's the difference between quitting and retiring? A pension?
Well, no, I think he's looking for something else to do.
Okay.
But how, like, when my knee-jerk reaction, every morning I would look to his column, and I even looked this morning as well. And
for your name?
I was sad. No, he would not put my name in for years. I was persona non grata. But what he would do on a day like today is he would tell you which person who went to high school in the area has finally gotten a plum job as a per diem reporter at Channel 2. So,
oh, wow.
For about $9 an hour. Now, he used to do these things called Robservations, very clever play on words there. I have Brucervations, so I'm just making up stories just to fill in the gap here. So here's the headlines today. Faye Flynn still dead. Mark Giangreco to appear with Janet Davies in a summer stock version of the Fantastics in the Catskills, and WLIT to begin airing Christmas music. So I'm really wondering what it's like in Chicago TV newsrooms now, because all of a sudden news anchors and reporters aren't worth writing about. And, that made them feel, I know it made me feel like, oh, we're important. When I was on TV, oh, Rob Feeder's writing about it. And now it's like, you're not even worth it. And it's not like anybody's going to fill the void either. So,
well, when it went from a newspaper to Substack, I mean, it kind of diminished the. Everyone gets mentioned on the web somewhere, right?
Somewhere, even if it's only on your own Facebook page. So I know you care about this even less. This is the segment in which I just keep going until Tim throws his hands up and just goes into a Harry Carey impersonation the entire time. Eddie Olczyk is leaving the Chicago Blackhawks, and he was the color commentator for Low these past 16 years. I really liked Eddie. Did you hear that dog barking in the background? Any chance?
That means the.
That means it's almost time to go.
The repossessor guy is here to take your microphone.
It's a 4-minute. It's a 4-minute warning. But I'm really sorry to see Eddie Olczyk, good old number 16, go. I was not sorry enough to read any of the stories or listen to any of the interviews with him. But And I was waiting for somebody to send me a tweet about it. And somebody did and said that his brother is an executive in Seattle. There's a team called the Seattle Kraken now. So
Kraken. That's Kraken.
Kraken. Excuse me. Of course, Kraken. Yeah, because
like,
that's isn't that what
Sydney?
Is it Sidney Powell was?
Like the Kraken.
She's like the center iceman on the Seattle Kraken. If I'm not with Rudy Giuliani at right wing. And there is no left winger on the team. That's the only thing about the Seattle Kraken. So, so that sounds like a legitimate reason to go. Plus, apparently, the Blackhawks didn't offer all that much money. But one time, I remember I actually tweeted Eddie during a game, and I mentioned the Blackhawks trainer Skip Thayer, who was like the trainer in the 1960s, and he tweeted back old school. So he knew what I was talking about, and. The only thing that really bugged me was at the very first Stanley Cup celebration that in the modern era here, and Eddie was the MC of it. He kept referring to good old number so-and-so as he introduced each of the players. And I wonder where he got that from, huh? Yeah, you're looking probably Kopic, but really me. But he was actually a really good announcer, and he is going to be missed terribly. Well, he would be missed if I actually watch the Blackhawks. I only watch if they make the playoffs, and they don't, and they're not planning on it for the next several years. And I do know that he was quoted, I believe today, saying that the Blackhawks should have done their rebuild like 2 years ago. Oh, well, why didn't you say it 2 years ago, Eddie? They could have gotten rid of you then. So sorry to see Eddie Olczyk go. Now, there was a story in the Tribune a couple of days ago about how redlining in the 1940s knocked a lot of African Americans out of the city. And I'm thinking to myself, really? Because we fled, were part of the white flight in the 1950s. So what were we running from if the blacks were already gone in the 1940s? I'm not sure I can make sense of all of that, but apparently it did happen in the 1940s. And there's a story about school enrollment is dropping everywhere. Public school enrollment in New York, I mean, it's way down, and some of it has to do with parents thought that the pandemic closures went on way too long. The teachers were taking advantage of the situation, and and everything else in its wake. And you got to think, somebody tweeted, it's the creme de la creme that are leaving the public schools as well. So what are you going to have left there? It's almost like you have a de facto voucher system now.
That's been good. That's been going on.
The public schools.
That's been going on forever. I mean, if you got a lot of money, you put your kid in the private school. If you don't have a lot of money, you move out to the suburbs. I mean, that's nothing. And speaking of closures, there's dozens of Starbucks stores that are closing because of bums. I mean, sure,
you can't have people coming in there. And when I speak of bums, I'm talking about people who don't buy any coffee at all and just open up their laptops. I don't care about the homeless coming in. They should have a shelter. I'm talking about you.
I have nursed many a cup of Starbucks for several hours. So I guess I'm in that category.
And my final complaint, Tim, is that I do the New York Times spelling bee every day. And the other day I saw the word abattoir on there. I could see ABATTOIR, which means a slaughterhouse. They didn't recognize it as a word. I mean, if the New York Times doesn't even recognize a highfalutin word like abattoir, what is happening?
Well, it's a highfalutin word for a facility on the bad side of town.
Yeah.
I mean, so they don't.
I just don't understand that. All right, coming up next week, I promise you, I know you want to hear this, Why I Love American Vandal. I want you to watch it. It's a 2017 series. Please watch it, okay, Tim?
American Vandal.
I think you're going to like it.
And that's the weekly wrap on radio and television. Follow Bruce at Bruce Wolf Shy on Twitter and Tim at timslagle.com. The weekly wrap with Bruce Wolf, a CP Pods production. Copyright 2022.